اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. Today marks the 8th Majalis at IAC Husaini Chicago for our Ashra English lecture series read by Moulana Syed Safi Haider Abidi. I would like to now invite Brother Mohsin Rizvi for salam, followed by Brother Mehdi Rizvi. Bawazib balan salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad warjil faraj.
صلوات اللهم صل على
محمد وآل محمد.
عاشور کی شب سرور نے کہا معصوم سکینہ سو جاؤ ہو جائے گا کل ایک حشر بپا معصوم سکینہ سو جاؤ پانی کے لیے کل نکلے گا عباس مشکو علم لے کر واپس وہ نہیں آئے گا معصوم سکینہ سو جاؤ چادر بھی تمہارے چھینیں گے خیمے بھی جلائے جائیں گے کل ہوگی بہن بھائی سے جدا معصوم سکینہ سو جاؤ ننہا سا تیرا بھائی اصغر مقتل کو پیاسا جائے گا چھر جائے گا تیرے ستم سے گلا معصوم سکینہ سو جاؤ جی بھر کے تجھے میں دیکھ تو لوں سینے پہ میں اپنے سلا تو لوں کل میرا گلا کٹ جائے گا معصوم سکینہ سو جاؤ صفدر کا جگر پھٹ جاتا ہے یہ سوچ کے حال عابد کا گردن میں ہے تو اور شام چلا معصوم سکینہ سو جاؤ
جاگیر سے چل پڑا قافلہ میرے غازی کہاں ہو اے میرے باوفا ہے بہن بیردا میرے غازی کہاں ہو تجھ کو دیکھے بنا چین آتا نہیں نوک نیزہ پہ سر تیرا ملتا نہیں میں زیارت کروں کس طرح یہ بتا میرے غازی کہاں ہو تیری جاگیر سے چل پڑا قافلہ میرے غازی کہاں ہو لاج رکھ لو بہن کی برادر میرے خاک مقتل میرے سر کا پردہ بنے حکم دے دو ذرا منتظر ہے ہوا میرے غازی کہاں ہو تیرے بازو مجھے راستے میں ملے میں نے چادر سمجھ کر وہ سر پر رکھے بازوؤں سے تیرے پوچھتی ہوں پتا میرے غازی کہاں ہو دیکھ کر بہن کو دشت میں ننگ سر کیا حیا گئی چھپ گئے ہو کدھر خود چلی آؤں گی تم بتا دو ذرا میرے غازی کہاں ہو میں نے بچپن میں لوری سنائی تجھے میں نے چلنا سکھایا تھا بھائی تجھے راہ پر خار پر مجھ کو چلنا سکھا میرے غازی کہاں ہو وہ تیری لاڈلی وہ سکینہ تیری چلتے نا کس جب خاک پر گر گئی دیکھتی رہ گئی وہ سوئے القما میرے غازی کہاں ہو تیری جاگیر سے چل پڑا قافلہ میرے غازی کہاں ہو
بواز بلند صلوات اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجہ. Today marks our 8th Majalis in the Ashra English lecture series, read by Moulana Syed, Safi, Haider, Abidi. Today's speech continues on the topic of Marifat al-Nafs, al-Irfan, and Shi'ism. Please recite aloud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil faraj.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى Muhammad. Tonight continues the series of our lectures where we had originally started by talking about the development of Shia Aqaid through history, from Tawheed, Adal, Sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Nabuwa, Imamah, and Qiyamah. And for the past 2 nights, we had been talking about knowledge and nafs. More specifically in the hadith that says, Man arafa nafsahu faqad arafa rabbah. He who knows his nafs knows his Lord. And I had mentioned that the best proof of the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the knowledge of the existence of the nafs, is maut. Now people might ask, what is death then? And the Aimma of Ahlul Bayt have put it very, very specifically. Some hadith, they say that death for a mu'min is him taking off the worst garments, torn, tatters, and to clothes with mud all over them, and clothes and shackles and chains, while they take that off and they put the best of the garments on themselves. It's a change of libas from the worst libas to the best libas. That is one understanding of it. Another statement will say, for example, that death is like a fragrance. Death for a believer, rather, is like the most fragrant of perfumes, while the death for the unbeliever is like the stinging of a scorpion or a snake, of a venomous snake. While the one is extremely pleasant, the other one literally causes death. No pun intended. But for the mu'min, it is taking off the worst clothes and putting on the best one, putting on the best fragrances. And for the disbeliever, those who do not accept or submit themselves to the will of God, it means taking off the best clothes, putting on the worst, and the sting of the snake or the scorpion. People still ask, what is the proof that death is the separation of life and the soul, the body and the soul? You see, when we usually categorize something as living or non-living, we have a few testimonies or testifiers to it. We have a few experiments that we try. One is the ability for it to grow by itself, produce its own nourishment for plants. Another is voluntary movement. Another is the existence of tools. Another is the existence of language. And another is the existence of an intellect. The movement of voluntary movement of bodily functions is something that separates the plants from the animals. Of course, some carnivorous plants do produce movement on themselves, but the difference between a plant and an animal usually is that one can move freely however they want, the animal, but the plant is more restricted. It is in the ground, it is stuck. Voluntary movement, tools, language, intellect, aql. Tools are such that you find primates make tools to get ants. They have other proto-human species would use the hand axe to create a tool. They would take a big stone, and they would basically create an arrow out of it or an axe out of it, and they would grind away at the earth or whatever they wanted to get the food. That was a sign of life. The existence of languages is another sign of life. Where the bees have their own movement and signs and symbols. What is language? Language is basically a sign, a symbol. Whether it's spoken, whether it's sign language with the hands, whether it's movements of bees, that's all language. It's a means of expression. The way I express myself is through my language. And then when we talk about language, of course, everyday language is different from the language of the khatib, which is different from the language of the scientist, which is different from the language of the president. Well, I can't say much about that. But then there are differences of languages, not with the most recent one at least. There are differences of languages. One species cannot understand the language of another species. I cannot understand the language of gorillas or ants or any other animals out there, or birds or whatever. But even within the human species, where there is one big categorization of everybody amongst one full species, unless I can learn a different language, but it takes years of practice and trying and inculcation and methodology and revision and revision and revision again and again and again. That's proof of language as well. Proof of language is a proof of life. Another proof of life is the existence of an aql, which is specifically for human beings. Our reasoning pattern shows us that we are alive. That is pure life, yes. That is pure life, yes. But does that mean I have greater life than an animal who doesn't have the ability to think or to analytically process thought? Well, some might say yes. But then, these are all proofs of life. These are not the reasons for life. Many times when we talk about life and death, people, they don't understand the aim of life or death itself. We categorize life in terms of effects, movements, like I mentioned, language, intellect, voluntary movements, and all of that. But when it comes to death, we also recognize it in terms of its side effects. Cessation of life is a side effect. Cessation of life is death. But the fact that there's no voluntary movement coming out of my hands or language or analytic thought is a whole side or a side effect of death. How many people understand the true nature of death? الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. He who created life and death to see which one of you is the best in amal. The purpose of death and life rather, he who created death and life, death first and then life, is to see which one of you is the one who is ahsanu amala, who is of the best amal, who has the best behavior, who is the most loving to his mother, who is the most respectful to his father, who kisses the feet of their parents and grandparents, who loves their spouse and their children in a way that Allah wants them to love their spouse and children. That is the real reason of life and death, or death and life in this case. Now, I talked about death a little bit. Let me go back to the discussion on life. الذي خلق الموت. The first thing Allah is saying, He created maut وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. It is really strange that when we say life and death, we have to understand that our beginning of our life is najasa and the end of our life is najasa. I won't elaborate much on the first part. But the end of the life is so much najas that anybody who touches the body without there having been done, without the mayyat having been given ghusl al-mayyat with the three waters, Abe Kafur, Abe Sidr, and then pure water. If those baths are not given, then the one before these baths are given, that body is so najas that anybody who even touches it, usually najasa requires, the transfer of najasa requires wetness. But there is a difference. When an animal dies, the animal is najas. Yes, transfer of najasa in that case requires wetness, yes. But you can wash your hand 3 times after that, after you've removed the initial najasat, and your hand is tahir. The najasat of the man, however, is such that you touch him once without any wetness, a dead body once without any wetness, the superlative degree of tahara has to be maintained. Therefore, you have to do ghusl mayyat. How strange is it that we have so much pride in between 2 realms of najasat? Really, it is shocking. But then again, if those people and those individuals who recognize the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a right over us and they turn to God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about himself, فَتَبَارَكَ اللَّهُ أَحْسَنُ الْخَالِقِينَ, that God is the best of creators. God is the best of creators. God created us, He is the best of creators. He created the plants, He is the best of creators. He created the sky, فَتَبَارَكَ اللَّهُ أَحْسَنُ الْخَالِقِينَ. He created the earth, فَتَبَارَكَ اللَّهُ أَحْسَنُ الْخَالِقِينَ. He created the birds, فَتَبَارَكَ اللَّهُ أَحْسَنُ الْخَالِقِينَ. He created the lions, فَتَبَارَكَ اللَّهُ أَحْسَنُ الْخَالِقِينَ. Allah is the best of creators, period. There's no doubt about it. Then, how come human beings are so disobedient? Recite Salat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. How come the human being rejects God? How come the human being does not understand God? How? You see, one of the problems that have emerged as a result of the corona pandemic is the pandemic or the lack of understanding of mental health within the Muslim community. People were not used to living alone. They were used to going out, going for work, and then going to parties or functions, and then socializing. But they say that when the man had to be left alone for a month or 2, he went crazy. There is a big problem, the pandemic of mental health. And it's very important for us to note that the A'imma, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhim, Rasulullah and the A'imma of Ahlul Bayt have provided solutions for us, yes. They have given us answers, yes. And we have to turn to the best thing to do during the time of this pandemic is to turn our directions directly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To ask the wasila of Muhammad al Muhammad. To ask for the servitude of Fatima al-Zahra. And then ask Allah for the health and well-being of Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman. How many times do we remember our Imam? How many times? But being constantly connected to Allah requires a sense of taqwa. You see, what is taqwa? Piety. or what is ibadat for in general? Taqwa is a result of ibadat, basically, if it's practiced properly, the ibadah. And Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam has said the worshippers are of three types. One is the one who worships Allah out of fear. This is the worship of the slave. The other one is the one who worships Allah out of love for akhirah. This is the worship of a merchant. Then the other one, the third one, is the one who loves Allah and worships Allah as the way he deems fit to be worshipped, as the way God wants to be worshipped, because he sees God fit to be worshipped. He says the third one is the real worshipper. You see, sometimes people might ask then, if I am not a true worshipper, how can I get there? How can I get there? Remember, the side effects of an ibadah are not the reasons to perform the ibadah. If I take a side effect and put it as the maqsad of my ibadah, I am treating that side effect as a god, and I am worshipping that side effect. People might say Ramadan is for example, losing weight. And some of us might need to lose more weight than others. But is that the side effect of the Ramadan, or is that the main reason? Is that the side effect of the fasting, or is that the main reason? Let's go even further. I just related the example of a physical side effect. If I am praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I pray because I want greater concentration or greater mental acuteness, that abstract side effect is a result of the prayer. It's not cause for the prayer itself. It's not the cause or the reason for the prayer. It's the side effect of the prayer. Me making that the goal that I work for or yearn for as the main reason for my prayer is basically saying, God, I treat this side effect as it being on par with you or even higher than you. Therefore I worship it and I don't worship you. Recite salawat, please. Allahumma salli Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. God is one who should be worshipped just for the sake of worshiping God. And you see, I've mentioned this previously as well, in other lectures and other events as well. The meditation of a Buddhist is an exercise of concentration. The petitionary prayer of a Christian is a Christian asking God, God, give me this, 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 and this. The namaz of the Muslim is a combination of the concentration exercises of meditation and the petitionary aspects of prayers of the Christians. And it gives you something which is wholeheartedly something higher and above anything any other ibadat can give you. I'm not saying, and I respect all religions and all views, and I love different religions. But the combination of the prayer being meditation and petition gives it a whole new light. It allows you to converse with God on a whole different level. That is why Aimma salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhim, they used to spend their whole nights in prayer. Rasulullah used to spend his whole nights in prayer. But then we have to ask, how do we develop taqwa? Why is taqwa so important? Taqwa is so important that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is He sends His prophets for the perfection of the akhlaq of the human being. The Prophet himself said, I have not been sent to you to perfect your prayer, your psalm, your siyam, your qunut, your sujood, your zakat, your khums, and your jihad, or anything like that. No. He says, I have been sent to this world to perfect your akhlaq. Makarim al-akhlaq. If I don't perfect my akhlaq, how can I call myself a follower of Rasulullah? If I cannot perfect my akhlaq, how can I call myself a follower of Amir al-Mu'mineen? If I do not perfect my akhlaq, how can I call myself a follower of Fatima al-Zahra? If I don't perfect my akhlaq, how can I call myself the follower of Hassan, Hussein, Imam al-Baqir, Imam al-Sadiq, Imam al-Kadhim, Imam al-Rida, Imam Jawad, Imam Taqi, Imam Naqi, Imam Hassan Askari, and Sahib al-Zaman? How? How do I call myself their followers? That's a very high example to have. The simple answer is, if I live in the moment, which is the maqsad of Irfan, then I have satisfied my nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If I live in this moment, no multitasking, no mind going a million places at one time. Let's say right now is the time for prayer. I'm not thinking about my keys. I'm not thinking about lunch. I'm not thinking about work. I'm not thinking about family matters. I'm just thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then I say, Allahu Akbar, God is the greatest. God is the greatest. And then I perform my ibadat. Why? Because God is the greatest. That's why. People, obviously, when you're doing an analysis of yourself, you have, like I don't know about you, but I have many regrets. Things that I could have done better. Things that I should not have done in my life. But then people ask, why? How can I change my destiny? If I was in track A, B, or C, I would have been in the straight collision course with Islam. Then they say, if I had path D or E or F, I would have followed Islam better. If I am predestined to follow path A, B, or C, it makes God completely unjust. But God is not unjust. But God gives us the ability to change our paths from A, B, and C to D, E, and F. How? Dua. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changes the muqaddar of a person with dua. Dua. In Shia Irfan and Shia philosophy, there is a concept of a term known as bada. Now, I should mention this, that the will of God is not changing. The will of God is firm. But the command of God for us changes. You see, for the human being at least, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it such that Allah has created, let's say, slides of an infinite number of possibilities. We get to choose our own possibility. If I don't like one, I can choose the other. If I don't like one, I can choose the other. If I don't like one, I can actually ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for bada, to change my destiny and make the destiny that I want the best of destinies. And I've seen this in the most extreme case in my life. I remember there's a family who's a family friend of ours from Pakistan. Their grandfather and their great-grandfather knew my grandparents and great-grandparents from both sides. Grandparents, at least. And they were both from the Pindi, Islamabad area, both our families and this family friend of ours. The grandfather the mother's father, I believe it was, auntie's father. It might have been the uncle's father. I'm not sure. He was a very muttaqi individual. He had a high level of taqwa. And somehow he found out, maybe the doctors told him or whatever, that he was going to die. He was very old. He was writing a book. He found out that he would have died before he finished the book. He prays to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Oh Allah, I pray that change my destiny, give me enough life so that I can finish this book, and I will dedicate it to Ahlul Bayt. And he finishes the book, he dedicates it to Ahlul Bayt, and he leaves this world. There's an even more powerful example of Ayatollah Yazdi, the one who is the founder and the forefather of the Hawzat al-Ilmiyyah in Qum al-Muqaddasa. This founder and father of the Hawza al-Ilmiyyah of Qum al-Muqaddasa, this is before he founded the Hawza of Qum, he went to Karbala, he got really, really sick, and he basically died. And his life, he felt that he had not reached his highest capacities. For 2 weeks, his family was taking care of the body, and then he got better and better and better and better until he got fully recovered. And then he said that I died. I left this world. I asked for bada, which means the changing of my will, changing of the will of God, rather. And then they say the will, his will, God's will changed. He prayed to God, this Ayatollah Haider Yazdi, that I have nothing in my life except sin. I have done nothing for God. I've done nothing for Ahlul Bayt. Let me do something for Ahlul Bayt. And then after that life-changing event, he forms the Hawza of Qum, which is the religious center in all of Iran, and one of the main learning centers of Shi'ism, beside Najaf and Karbala and Mashhad, throughout the world. That is the power of dua. Now, when we look at Ahlul Bayt, alayhi salatu wassalam, we see the full implementation of this dua, of namaz. And let me backtrack and rephrase that. Salat and dua in the Arabic lexicon, they all mean supplication. Salat in Lughat al-Fiqhiyya means Allahu Akbar, Sami' Allah, Qunut, Qiyam, Ruku, Sujood, and all this type of stuff. When it came to the Salat, the mustahab salats of what were the mustahab salat, like Salat al-Layl, of the A'immah, were wajib on them. They had to perform Salat al-Layl. But for those who were not at the level of Ismat al-Kubra, but they were at the level of Ismat al-Sughra, their Salat al-Layl, they never even became qada. The famous hadith of Imam al-Sajjad regarding Sayyidah Zainab is that Sayyidah Zainab Salat al-Layl never became qada. Never became qada. She never missed it. What does that mean? Let me rephrase that, because when we talk about the Salat of Sayyidah Zainab, Salat al-Layl of Sayyidah Zainab, it has a very specific importance. Because on the last al-Wida of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn, he gave one nasiha specifically for Sayyidah Zainab regarding himself. And it was that, oh, Sister Zainab, do not forget me in your Salat al-Layl. Now imagine, from Karbala to Kufa, Kufa to Sham, Imam al-Sajjad is saying, my Aunt Zainab Salat al-Layl never became qada. That means every night she prayed Salat al-Layl, and every night she remembered Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. That means on the Sham-e Ghariba, when all of the the tragedies of Ashura had happened. All the ashab, all the al who had wanted to go fight became shaheed. Al-Aba Abdullah himself became shaheed. After the tents were looted, the tents were burned. After picking up Imam al-Sajjad, and I'm not at Musibah yet. After picking up Imam al-Sajjad from the burning tent, after rescuing Sakina from the battlefield, after gathering all the women and children, after meeting her father and everything, Lady Zainab remembers Imam al-Husayn in the Qunut of Salat al-Witr. Now, what does she remember? I don't know. I really don't know. Because at the one time she could be thinking about the life that she spent with Imam Husayn, the childhood, bachpane ki baatein. Then her married life, how she spent every waking minute of her life in front of Abu Abdullah, never separated from him. How she never wanted to leave her brother, and she never left her brother alone. How her brother became shaheed, how his head got put on a lance, or any one of those things. No. All I know is that her Salatul Layl never became qada. And now we look at Imam al-Sajjad himself. Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam was put in the most difficult situations. Even the closest companions of Imam al-Sajjad did not know necessarily what happened exactly in Karbala, because Imam al-Sajjad had been put in such a strange situation where the revolutions against Banu Umayyah were happening, and Mukhtar was supported by Imam through Muhammad al-Hanafiyyah. And the Imam supported indirectly the movements of the Zayd al-Shaheed, for example. They couldn't do it openly because that would cause fighting, and the Imams did not want to. They were not actually, let me rephrase it, they were not actually given the position where they could openly oppose the tyrannic powers. Therefore, they stay quiet, but they gave the blessing to Mukhtar through Muhammad al-Hanafiyyah and Zayd al-Shaheed. Imam al-Sajjad leaves us with two legacies, two books that were compiled from the corpus of hadith related to him. One is Risalat al-Huquq, and the other is Sa'ifat al-Sajjadiyya. The other one is a book of du'as. And you read that du'as, you imagine Imam al-Sajjad, Alhamdulillah al-awwali bila awwalin kana qablah, wal-akhiri bila akhiri yakunu ba'da, alladhi qasurat sawayatihi أيام الناصرين وعجزت عن نعسه أيام الواصفين. All of this, أوهام الواصفين, all of this is a blessing. All of this is a blessing. Now, if Imam Sajjad's prayer never became qada, if the Salatul Layl of Sayyidah Zainab Salamullahi alayha never became qada, what gives you and me the right to miss our daily prayers? I have to be very honest with you about myself. When I was around 15 is when I started taking prayers seriously. Actually, my birthday, Islamic birthday, is in Safar. So I was listening to the Shami, the Majalis once, and then we had the Julus to go to in DC to prepare the big alam, to prepare the Markazi alam. And my father we had the panja and the patka at our house, and we would go prepare the Markazi alam. I remember thinking about the musibah of Sayyidah Zainab, and then thinking that the statement of Imam Sajjad is this: my aunt Zainab Salat al-Layl never became qada, means in Zindan al-Sham, in the tight corners of Zindan al-Sham, her Salat al-Layl never became qada. Now, imagine that for us. Just take a second, think about that. Her Salat al-Layl never became qada. She was given such little food that she would distribute it amongst the children and the women, and she would be left with such little energy that she was not able to stand up and pray, but she still offered her Salatul Layl. She never missed her Salatul Layl. She always offered her Salatul Layl at the proper time. In Zindan Sham, she never forgot Salatul Layl. In Kufa, she never forgot Salatul Layl. In the journey from Karbala to Kufa and Kufa to Sham, back to Medina the rest of her life, she never forgot Salatul Layl. Now, there is Salat, which has a different ma'na shar'i, and there's Dua, which has a different ma'na in itself. All in general, like Arabic grammar or Arabic language, mean prayer or supplication. But then Dua, in terms of the Islamic context, has a unique meaning. In the Shia context, it has an even more unique meaning. In the Christian tradition, they have liturgies. The closest thing Muslims have to liturgies of the Psalms is the Sahifat al-Sajjadiyya, and that exists in the du'as of Ahlul Bayt, and they exist within the school of Ahlul Bayt. Now, Imam Ali had a dua as well. Imam Ali alayhi salam had a dua, and so did Imam al-Husayn. Let me start with the other one, and then I will go back to the dua of Imam Ali. Imam Hussein prayed in Namaz al-Shab that he be given a daughter who cannot live without him and who he cannot live without. That the separation between him and her would be death for both of them. He would not be able to live without her, and she would not be able to live without him. And for that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Abu Abdullah al-Husayn Sakina. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he says, I do not find comfort in any house that does not have a Sakina or a Raba. Now, Imam Ali also had a dua, and that dua was answered by his brother Aqil. Aqil, Muslim ibn Aqil's father. Aqil is told by Imam Ali, after, of course, the Imam Fatima Zahra becomes Shaheed. Imam Ali, just like the Prophet did not marry anyone when he was married to Bibi Khadija, Imam Ali did not marry anybody when he was married to Bibi Fatima. But then one time he came up to his brother Aqil. Aqil was great in genealogies, in ancestry. He was a mahir of ancestry. He went to Aqil and he said, Aqil, find me a wife from a tribe who is known for their valor, so that there one day that she could give me birth so I can marry her, and she can give me a son who will protect my other son Hussein in Karbala. And Muslim ibn Aqil's father Aqil recommended the tribe of Fatima al-Kilabiyya. Fatima al-Kilabiyya is the name, the actual name of al-Baneen alayhi salam. Alayhi salam. al-Baneen means mother of four. You know why they changed her name, or why she actually preferred not to be called that name during her marriage with Amir al-Mu'mineen? Is because when she got married to Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wassalam. She said, Master, this is a servant saying this to her master Imam Ali, don't call me by the name Fatima, because when Hasanain, when Zainab and Kulthum will hear the name of their mother Fatima, they will start crying, and I cannot take the tears of Hasanain. al-Baneen al-Baneen means the mother of sons. She had 4 sons, and she gave them all in Karbala to Abu Abdullah al-Husayn salamullahi alayhim. She gave each and every single one of her sons to Abu Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salam. You know what happened? She gave birth to Al-Abbas, and when Imam Ali alayhi salam was breathing his last, he gave off every child in wasiyyah to Imam al-Hasan except Al-Abbas. At the end, Imam Ali wanted to a state that resembled the state of unconsciousness. And then when he gained consciousness, or when he came back, he saw al-Baneen crying. He says to her, "What's wrong, al-Baneen?" She says to him, "O Master, you have given each one of the children to Imam al-Hasan except Abbas. What is the fault of my Abbas? What is the fault of my Abbas?" Then he says, "Baneen, there is no fault in your Abbas. Al-Abbas, he gives to Abu Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salatu wassalam. He gives him directly to Abu Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salatu wassalam. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, imagine the valor of Al-Abbas. Imagine the valor of Al-Abbas. And every time Al-Abbas wants to pick up a sword and start fighting, the Imam of the time says, "Brother, it's not time to fight." Amir al-Mu'mineen gets struck on the head with a sword. Al-Abbas wants to take out his sword and start fighting. Imam al-Hasan, who is the Imam al-Asr of that time, says that, "Abbas, put your sword back in his sheath. It's not time to fight." Abu Abdullah al-Husayn yells in the court of the governor of Medina, in the palace of the governor of Medina. Abu al-Fadl Abbas goes, but even then he does not take out his sword because the Imam does not want him to take out his sword. Abu al-Fadl Abbas alayhi salam, when Ahl al-Bayt reach Karbala on the 2nd of Muharram, a day or two later, they're told that they cannot set up their tent next to the riverbank. And in Urdu they say, "Abbas ko jalal aa gaya." Ghazi Abbas ko jalal aa gaya. Kiski jurrat thi? Who had the capabilities of removing the tents of Zainab and Kulthum? At that time, Abu Abdullah al-Husayn could not control this lion of his. Or he went to his sister Zainab. He says, "Zainab, Abbas is in the state of jalal." Lady Zainab understood. And he was ordered to put back his sword and move the tents. The same person, the same Abbas who had set the tents up, is now being ordered by the Imam to remove them. On the 10th of Muharram, on the day of Ashura, Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas keeps on asking Imam al-Husayn for permission to go fight. And Imam al-Husayn keeps on relenting, saying, "Abbas, you are my standard bearer. You are the bearer of the flag of my army. How can I send you?" At one time, Abu al-Fadl Abbas says to his master Imam Husayn, "O master, where is that army who I am the flag bearer of? That army is not left anymore. They have all went to paradise. Give me permission." The last person before Abdullah al-Radhi who goes off to fight is Abu al-Fadl Abbas. Who goes to confront the enemies, rather, is Abu al-Fadl Abbas. And you know what? Abu al-Fadl Abbas says, "Abbas, do not take your sword out." But he says, "Go ask permission from your sister Zainab first." Lady Zainab, she's in her tent. She asked for permission. He asked for permission. You know what Lady Zainab says? "Oh Abbas, when Rasulullah was alive, he would kiss my head in my arms, and I would not know why he did that. I did not have the courage to ask Rasulullah why he did that. When he left this world, my father Ali used to kiss my head and my arms. I did not have the courage even to ask my father why he would do that. Then, when my father was about to breathe his last, I got up with the courage to ask him. And you know what he said? Oh, Abbas, he said to me that one day your veil will be stolen and your arms will be tied in a rope. Abbas, I always thought that if I had a brother like Abbas, nobody would be able to steal my veil. Nobody would be able to put chains or put a rope on my arms. Abbas, go now. Abbas, go now. I know that I will be imprisoned. I know my hands will be tied now. I know my veil will be stolen now. Lady Zainab, the declaration of Imam Ali was proven to be true. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, he gets his water bag. He gets the water bag of Sakina. He gets the standard. He goes. Remember, Abu Abdullah al-Husayn had not told him to go fight yet. So he goes and he has a lance through which he is separating the enemies. And just with this lance, they move yards and yards away. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas gets to the riverbank without any problem. He goes. He puts his hands in shape of a cup. And he takes the water, he looks at it, and he says, Ya Nafs min ba'd al-Husayni huni. Oh, Nafs, after Hussein, nobody counts. And he threw the water back. Some say that it was the dua of Abbas, that since his hands and his arms had touched the water, he did not want to see his master with his arms anymore. He did not want to see his master with arms anymore. So he goes, he fills the water bag, he gets up on his horse, he takes the flag. He takes the flag. And he goes, Sakina, she has all the children gathered around her. She's watching the flag. She's watching the flag. At one time, the flag bends a little bit. Then it gets back up. When it bows a little bit, Sakina said, children, let's pray for my uncle Abbas. You know what happened? Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas was going through an area of a lot of trees. Nobody had the ability to face al-Abbas directly. So one of them, they were hiding behind the trees. And when Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas reached this area where there were a lot of trees, a shaqi came from behind him and he chopped off the right hand of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. Then the flag bends again. What happened was somebody chopped off the left hand of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. An arrow pierced Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas's eye. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, you know what happens? He has no arms. He has no arms. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas has no arms. So he bends a little bit. Remember, he has the arrow in his eye. He wants to take off the arrow between his leg and the horse. When he bends, somebody takes his sword, somebody strikes Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas falls. He cries out to his master, Abu Abdullah al-Husayn, when he sees the shahadat of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. When he sees the shahadat of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, he says, my back has been broken. The back of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn was broken by the shahadat of Abbas. Remember, Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas had an arrow in his eye. And his eyes, both of them, had become bloodied with the blood of that arrow that resulted from the strike of that arrow. when Abu al-Fadl Abbas alayhi salam fell, he called out to his master. Remember, he can't see anything right now. He hears somebody come near him. He says, I beg you, leave me. My master is going to be here sometime. Imam Hussein looks and he says, this is your master Hussein Abbas. This is Abu Abdullah al-Hussein ya Abbas. This is your master Hussein Abbas. Imam Hussein takes Abu al-Fadl Abbas's head and he puts him on his lap. Abu al-Fadl Abbas removes his head from the lap of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Abu al-Fadl Abbas is asked, why did you remove your head from my lap, oh brother Abbas? He says, right now, master, you are here, and that's why you have my head on your lap. There will be a time when you will be stranded, and there will be nobody to put your head on their lap. Master, I ask of you two things. Tell my sister, Lady Zainab, that I am sorry. Tell my sister, Lady Zainab, that I'm sorry. I was the one who mounted her to Karbala, but I will not be able to mount her back home. And also, Master, please do not bring my body back to the tents, because I am shy to Sakina. I promised her water. No water came. No water came. al-Baneen, when she heard about the martyrdom of Fadl Abbas, she had a marsiya she would recite for the remainder of her life. She would say, "O people, when somebody falls to the ground, they usually have hands to protect them from their fall, to break their fall. My Abbas didn't have any hands when he fell from his horse."
عباس کی بہن کو شامی رولا رہے ہیں چادر دکھا دکھا کے ہے عباس کی بہن کو شامی رولا رہے ہیں چادر دکھا دکھا کے اے عباس کی بہن کو شامی رولا رہے ہیں چادر دکھا دکھا کے رستہ بنا رہی ہے بنت علی کا فیضا کاٹ ہٹا بہن کو شامی رولا رہے ہیں چادر دکھا دکھا کے ہے عباس کی بہن کو شامی رولا رہے ہیں چادر دکھا دکھا کے عباس کی بہن کو شامی رولا رہے ہیں چادر دکھا دکھا کے بھائی بہن کی آنکھیں کام ہوتی جا رہی ہیں بنت علی کی سانسیں کم ہوتی جا رہی ہیں خنجر چلا رہا ہے زینب کے دل پہ ظالم خنجر دکھا دکھا کے اے عباس کی بہن کو شامی رولا رہے ہیں چادر دکھا دکھا کے اے عباس کی بہن کو شامی رولا رہے ہیں چادر دکھا دکھا کے گئی ضعیفہ زخمی کیا ہے پہلو نہ کس ظالموں نے مجھ کو گرا گرا کے اے عباس کی بہن کو شامی رولا رہے ہیں چادر دکھا دکھا کے اے عباس کی بہن کو شامی رولا رہے ہیں چادر دکھا دکھا کے ایک بچی کہہ رہی ہے آؤ مدد کو بابا دادی کی طرح میں بھی اب ہو گئی ضعیفہ زخمی کیا ہے پہلو نہ کس ظالموں نے مجھ کو گرا گرا کے
اے عباس کی بہن کو
شامی رولا رہے ہیں چادر دکھا دکھا کے اے عباس کی بہن کو شامی رولا رہے ہیں
چادر دکھا دکھا کر
پردے میں بھی جو بی چلتی نہ تھی زیادہ پردے سے میں اب ان پر آیا ہے وقت کیسا لائے ہیں شام والے ان شہزادیوں کو پیدل چلا چلا کے
اے عباس کی
بہن کو شامی رولا رہے ہیں چادر دکھا دکھا کے اے عباس
کی بہن کو شامی رولا رہے ہیں چادر دکھا دکھا کے
آتے ہیں جس طرف بھی اہل حرم کھلے سر کھاتی ہے پہلے درہ کھاتی ہے پہلے پتھر اپنے لہو میں تر ہے زہرا کی بیٹیوں کو فضا بچا بچا کے اے عباس کی بہن کو شامی رولا رہے ہیں
چادر دکھا دکھا کے
Abbas, ya Abbas, you're the bravest of us. Abbas, ya Abbas, you're the bravest of us. You're a reminder that Ali's above us as he's daring to bring water. They're preparing his slaughter as he's daring to bring water. They're preparing his slaughter. Oh, flag bearer, where's your hand? Is it bleeding on the sand? Oh, flag bearer, where's your hand? Is it bleeding on the sand? Will Sakina understand? You were loyal to her command. You were loyal to her command. Oh, my Abbas, Abbas, Abbas. Oh, my Abbas, Abbas, Abbas. Bravest of us, Abbas. Abbas, Abbas,
Where is Abbas?
Abbas, 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 Abbas.
Of words that are true, I say this of you. No brother on earth is truer than you. No more could you give, no more could you do.
Abbas, 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 Abbas.
This uncle of mine, so tall and so strong, will soon quench my thirst before long. They say he has died, they must be wrong.
Abbas, 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 Abbas.
Of all those who love, their love is outdone by the love that they had for Fatima's son. The day you were born, the blaze had begun.
Abbas, 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 Abbas.
Oh my Abbas,
Abbas, Abbas,
bravest of us.
Abbas, Abbas,
Where is Abbas?
Abbas, 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 Abbas. Oh my Abbas, oh my Abbas, Abbas, Abbas. Oh my Abbas, Abbas, Abbas. Bravest of us, Abbas, Abbas. Where is Abbas?
Abbas, Abbas, Abbas,
Abbas, Abbas, Abbas, Abbas, Abbas.
Who else can claim that Imam Hussein wanted no other and called out his name? My back is broken, who else remains?
Abbas, 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 Abbas.
The legend still stands, they speak of a man who charged like a lion and gave both his hands. You're watching the water, it pours on the sand.
Abbas, 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 Abbas.
Oh my Abbas,
Abbas, Abbas,
bravest of us.
Abbas, Abbas,
Where is Abbas?
Abbas, 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 Abbas.
The bridges are down in our lands today. The bombs of injustice have made it away. Our men are in prison, our children in pain.
Abbas, 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 Abbas.
We call out your name, for we need your aid. The foes of your father have wagged a crusade. O son of Ali, we call on your blade.
Abbas, 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 Abbas.
Don't tell me of heroes, there's only Abbas, protector of Hussein, the one Ali trusts. They cut him and stabbed him, but he's still with us.
Abbas, 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 Abbas.
Oh my Abbas,
Abbas, Abbas,
bravest of us.
Abbas, Abbas,
Where is Abbas?
Abbas, 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 Abbas. Abba Father Ya Abbas, 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 Abba Father Ya Abbas. Abba Faz, I still can't let you ride, bearer of my flag, power, awe, majesty, and pride. You're my backbone, please stay by my side. Relic of my father, I'd be broken if you died. Bloody soil, bloody swords, and bloody turbans. Abba Father Ya Abbas. Pouring on the sand is a water skin. Abba Father Ya Abbas. Master, when will I see your face again? Abba Father Ya Abbas. Call me brother, oh Abbas, for this the end. Abba Father Ya Abbas. Abba Father Ya Abbas. Abbas, Abul Fadl Ya 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 Abbas. Every man has a chance to show himself. Sometime in his life he will come to know himself. Good or bad, when the call is to Islam, some of us will stand, only some of us respond. Oh Hussein, your Abbas, here's your calling. Abul Fadl Ya Abbas, in the middle of the desert, bare and bloody. Abul Fadl Ya Abbas, and the shrieks of women who are screaming. Abul Fadl Ya Abbas, he'll answer you and he'll be stopped by nothing. Abul Fadl Ya Abbas, 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 Abul Fadl Ya Abbas. Wa wayla, 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 wa wayla. Oh martyr of Al-Qameh, wa wayla. Oh martyr of Al-Qameh, wa wayla, wa wayla. Oh Aziz of Fatima, wa wayla, wa wayla. Oh Aziz of Fatima, wa wayla, wa wayla. Oh uncle of Sakina, wa wayla, wa wayla. Oh uncle of Sakina, wa wayla, wa wayla. Oh the son of Murtada, wa wayla, wa wayla. Oh Haider of Karbala, wa wayla, 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 wa wayla. Ala al-Abbas, wa wayla, ala al-Abbas, wa wayla, ala al-Abbas, wa wayla, Abul Abbas, wa wayla, ala al-Abbas, wa wayla. Every Thursday night we remember Hussein. Every Thursday night we remember Hussein. We cry for Hussein and we call Ya Hussein. We cry for Hussein and we call Ya Hussein. Our goal is to spread the message of Hussein. Our goal is to spread the message of Hussein. To live like Ali and to die like Hussein. To live like Ali and to die like Hussein. Every beat of my heart calls the name of Hussein. Every beat of my heart calls the name of Hussein. And written on my heart is the name of Hussein. And written on my heart is the name of Hussein. Every beat of my heart calls the name of Hussein. Every beat of my heart calls the name of Hussein. And written on my heart is the name of Hussein. And written on my heart is the name of Hussein. Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Hussein. How much I've been dreaming to see Karbala. How much I've been dreaming to see Karbala. My eyes are begging me to see Karbala. My feet, they keep walking towards Karbala. My feet, they keep walking towards Karbala. When finally I see the dome of Hussein. When finally I see the dome of Hussein. One more time. When finally I see the dome of Hussein, I enter heaven and I cry, Ya Hussein. I enter heaven and I cry, Ya Hussein. Your Lord drew you upon every eye, Karbala. Your Lord drew you upon every eye, Karbala. Your name flows with every tear and cry, Karbala. Your tear flows with every tear and Karbala. Karbala, 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 Karbala. Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Abbas, 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 Abul Fadl, 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 Ya Abbas. السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين وعلى عباس الحسين يا قمر بني هاشم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين زين العابدين. السلام عليك يا إمام محمد الباقر علم النبيين. السلام عليك يا إمام جعفر الصادق. السلام عليك يا إمام موسى الكاظم. السلام عليك يا إمام علي بن موسى الرضا المرتضى. السلام عليك يا إمام محمد بن علي الجواد. السلام عليك يا إمام علي بن محمد الهادي. السلام عليك يا إمام حسن بن علي الزكي العسكري. السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان. الأمان 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 يا بقية الله في أرض أجرك الله. We send our condolences to you. يا صاحب العصر والزمان. I wonder where you are these nights. If you're in Bain al-Haramain, inshallah we all get to go visit our Imam next year this time, inshallah. السلام عليك يا أهل بيت النبوة وموضع الرسالة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته بالنبي وآله. رحم الله من يقرأ الفاتحة مع الصلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.